This is Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K. The man is a legend, and he's supposed to be enjoying his retirement, so why is he in the trenches dropping tactical nukes on the WNBA? Well, as one of the most respected voices in basketball with 42 years of coaching experience and a legacy built on championships, he couldn't keep quiet about the hate Caitlin Clark gets. When speaking at the Richmond Forum about winning, Coach K was asked about Caitlin, and he didn't hold back. Sure, he highlighted the positive elements of her game, but he also drew attention to the negative forces within the WNBA that have been a thorn in Caitlin's side from day one. And when a legend like Coach K speaks, people listen. I mean, at this point, what more does Caitlin have to prove the myth that nobody wants to play with her shattered? The Indiana Fever just had arguably the best free agency of any team, with veterans eager to sign up and play alongside her. Yet we all know the media machine will continue to downplay the Caitlin Clark effect. You already know she's going to keep facing an uphill fight. Every game, every stat, every mistake picked apart and magnified. That's just how it works when you're the face of the league. So what exactly did Coach K say? Why do his words carry so much weight? And what does this mean for Caitlin as she continues to navigate a league that scrutinizes her every move? Let's get into it. But first, like this video to say thanks to Coach K and subscribe to stick it to the haters. Now, let's rewind for a moment. The reason the complaints against Caitlin Clark are so frustrating and why her fans latch onto positive words from respected basketball minds like Coach K is because objectively Caitlin Clark didn't just have a good rookie season in the WNBA. She redefined what a rookie could accomplish. The numbers undeniable, with 19 2-points and 8 assists per game. She was one of the league's most lethal offensive weapons from the jump. But her impact goes beyond stats, because before Caitlin, the Indiana Fever barely registered as an afterthought, a team stuck in irrelevance, struggling with ticket sales, barely making a dent in media coverage. Then she arrived and everything flipped upside down. Sold out arenas, record-shattering TV ratings, the #1 jersey by a landslide. And just to put that in perspective, some of her games pulled in higher viewership than NBA matchups airing at the same time. That's insane. Her presence alone transformed the WNBA. She didn't just bring in new fans, she dragged the league into the mainstream. Wherever Caitlin goes, people follow. And while some critics like this lady questioned whether she could handle the spotlight, she silenced the doubters over and over again. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that player set it. So is it truly a broken record? Yeah, that'll go in the record books as Caitlin Clark is the all-time whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be, and I don't think it should be. But what makes the hate extremely frustrating and short-sighted is that she's sacrificing money and self-promotion to benefit all WNBA players. When Unrivaled offered her a quick $1 million to play in their new league, everyone assumed she'd take the cash, a few months of work, an easy payday, no strings attached, but she turned it down. Why? Because she's thinking long-term instead of chasing a short-term bag. She chose to rest, refocus, and stay locked in on the WNBA, where she'll grow the game for everyone, not just herself. And that decision, that tells you everything you need to know about Caitlin Clark. And you've got to give it to her. She's remarkably composed and professional, considering she's been dealing with unwarranted heat since day one. Before she even stepped onto a WNBA court, the media scoffed at the idea that she could live up to the hype. The critics had their takes locked and loaded. Then she took the league by storm, and fans responded big time. Her rookie season wasn't just historic on paper, it was a cultural event. Her name dominated headlines, her games shattered viewership records, and suddenly the WNBA was part of the mainstream sports conversation. But the more success she had, the louder the backlash became. When she won Time Athlete of the Year, you'd think that would be universally celebrated. Instead, the narrative shifted. Instead of recognizing her accomplishments, some former players, media voices, and insiders started tearing her down. Well, I have a lot of thoughts. But the first one is, so you offered the contract to a player who's not yet even in the WNBA Big Three. Does not happen during overseas season, so that doesn't make sense. But to mask it in this, I want to uplift and support WNBA players and women athletes, is kind of a cop-out, I think. Suddenly, it wasn't about what she did, it was about who was being overlooked. And the hate wasn't just professional criticism, it got personal. Accusations flew that she was only getting attention because of her race, that she was being protected in ways others weren't. that she was getting special treatment. But let's actually look at what she did. She took one of the worst teams in the league and dragged them to the playoffs. She set records. She got better and better as the season wore on. She won Rookie of the Year, and through it all she defended other players when they got hate. Nobody in our league should be facing any sort of racism. Continuing to uplift this league in a very positive light is the best thing that we can do, because there are so many great players, there are so many great teams, there are so many positive storylines that can be written and celebrated. And for me, that's why I became a fan of this league. So were the attacks justified, or were they just petty? Because here's the thing, it hasn't stopped. Every single time she steps onto the court, the debate reignites. Every pass, every shot, every foul dissected. Some say that's just the cost of being a star, and to an extent, sure, all great players face criticism. But there's something different here. This feels personal. It's not just about basketball. It's about what she represents. Some people aren't just rejecting Caitlin Clark, the player. They're rejecting Caitlin Clark, the phenomenon. You're going to be one of the leaders to help millions of young girls realize their dreams. And this is where Coach K steps in with 42 years of coaching experience, 5 national championships, and a legacy built on coaching some of the greatest players in basketball history. He knows what greatness looks like. And when it comes to Caitlin Clark, he didn't just acknowledge her talent. He praised her in ways that should shut down the critics entirely. She was terrific. And it'd be easy to build something on her, because she's very young. The best thing she does is pass. She's a magical passer, and she has a great feel for the game. Think about that. Coach K, who has coached Jason Tatum, RJ Barrett, Zion Williamson, and some of the greatest playmakers of the past 2 decades, isn't talking about Caitlin's shooting. He's not raving about her deep threes or scoring ability. He's focused on her passing, because great players don't just put up numbers, they make their teammates better, and Caitlin Clark does exactly that. But then he went beyond praising her skill, and what I was amazed with is how she's handled all the defenses. And then when she got into the WNBA, some of the negativity that was out there were jealousies. And there's the magic word, and the root of a lot of the hate, jealousy. The veterans who spent years grinding in empty arenas while Caitlin Clark sells out stadiums. The players who never got shoe deals, national commercials, or media attention while Caitlin dominates headlines. It's not about her game, it's not even about her attitude, it's about power, it's about who gets the credit, it's about who controls the future of the WNBA. And if you want to understand why the WNBA has been so hostile toward Caitlin Clark, you need to look at her impact. Caitlin Clark's rise isn't just about personal accolades or breaking records, it's about redefining the entire WNBA. Her presence has completely shifted the league's economic and cultural trajectory in a way that no player before her has. Let's start with the money. The WNBA just locked in its biggest TV deal ever, a $2 billion contract over 11 years. That's $200 million per year, which is a $140 million jump over the current deal. This is a massive moment for the league. For decades, WNBA players have fought for bigger paychecks, better resources, and more financial investment. And now they're finally getting it. And that's just the beginning. Sponsorship revenue soaring, merch sales sky-high, attendance breaking records. Every night, every time Caitlin steps on the court, the viewership spikes. Every time she plays, ticket sales skyrocket. And then there's the broader financial impact. The Indiana Fever, a team that was barely relevant before Caitlin, now averages over 17,000 fans per game. That's NBA level attendance. And here's the wildest stat of all, nearly 27% of the WNBA's entire economic activity is being driven by Caitlin Clark. Read that again. One player, a rookie, is responsible for over a quarter of the league's economic movement. That is game-changing. And here's what you need to remember. This league has been bleeding money for years. As much as the old guard wants to take credit for growing the WNBA, the harsh reality is that the league has lost money every single season. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has admitted that the WNBA loses about $10 million per year on average. And let's not forget, the NBA still owns 60% of the WNBA. If the NBA hadn't been financially supporting the league for the past 3 decades, the WNBA wouldn't even exist. And this is exactly why Caitlin Clark is so important. Yeah, the league is still losing money. It reported a $40 million loss in 2024. But here's the thing, without Caitlin, that number would have been much worse. Now the WNBA and its players are about to cash in. We've already talked about the new media rights deal. With that locked in, the players are renegotiating their collective bargaining agreement this year. Right now, WNBA players only receive around 9% of league revenue. That number is about to skyrocket. This means higher salaries across the board, no more players needing to go overseas to make real money. better rest, better recovery, and hopefully a better on-court product. So, yeah, Caitlyn's unprecedented popularity isn't just a win for her, it's a financial windfall for the entire WNBA. Every time her game attracts millions of viewers, every time she sells out an arena, the league's broadcast value skyrockets. That $40 million loss, this could be the season that finally flips the script, and here's where the haters really need to take a step back and check themselves. The usual BS narratives about race, the she's overhyped nonsense. None of that matters anymore. Because what's happening right now, this is the biggest moment in WNBA history, and whether they want to admit it or not, Caitlin Clark is the reason why. And if you need any more proof that the Caitlin Clark effect hasn't faded, just look at what happened with Caitlin Clark and the NBA All-Star Game. For the second year in a row, Caitlin turned down the three-point contest, but this time it wasn't about rest, it was a strategic move. She wanted all eyes on the WNBA's All-Star Game in Indianapolis. She wanted the spotlight on her league, and guess what? The NBA literally canceled the event altogether. That's how essential Caitlin Clark was to their plan. Think about that: the NBA, a multi-billion-dollar global empire, scrapped one of its showcase events because Caitlin wasn't going to be there. That is the level of influence she has right now, and here's why this year's WNBA All-Star Game is going to be insane. Last year's game set viewership records, but this time it's in Indianapolis. It's in Caitlin's city, the numbers are going to be off the charts. And then there's the Indiana fever. They weren't just satisfied with having the most watched rookie in history this offseason, they loaded up Natasha Howard, a defensive force with championship experience. DeWanna Bonner, a veteran scorer who knows how to win. Sophie Cunningham, a gritty, fiery shooter who thrives in big moments. Sydney Colson, a respected locker room leader with deep playoff experience. Brianna Turner, a defensive anchor who adds even more size and rebounding. They kept Kelsey Mitchell, one of the best shooters in the league. And don't forget Aaliyah Boston, the 2023 Rookie of the Year, who is only getting better. Caitlin finally has a squad. This is no longer just a young rebuilding team, this is a legit championship contender. And the whole basketball world, not just the WNBA, is going to be watching. Casual fans, diehard fans, NBA fans, everyone, because Caitlin Clark is bigger than basketball. She's a cultural phenomenon, and her brand, it's only going to get bigger. Now just imagine a Caitlin Clark WNBA championship, Caitlin Clark winning MVP. It would be the biggest moment in WNBA history, and this is why the haters need to cool it. Look, critics will always have something to say. They'll compare stats, cite past seasons, and create drama for clicks. Judge her game all you want, criticize her left hand, burn her on turnovers, but the petty garbage, the jealousy, the nonsense, it's time to let it go. Because whether you love her or hate her, Caitlin Clark has taken over. So here we are. Coach K called it exactly how it is. The criticism, the bitterness, the constant nitpicking, it's not about basketball anymore, it's jealousy, plain and simple. And that's what the league has to decide. Do they keep feeding into the pettiness, tearing down the very player who is putting them on the map, or do they finally acknowledge reality that Caitlin Clark isn't just growing her own brand, she's growing the entire WNBA? Because let's be clear, Caitlin Clark has never made this about herself. She turned down Unrivaled's $1 million payday not because she couldn't use the money, but because she wanted to keep her focus on the WNBA and its players. She skipped the NBA's three-point contest not because she wasn't interested, but because she wanted the spotlight on WNBA All-Star Weekend. She's been given every opportunity to chase the bag, to elevate herself over the league, to take an easy shortcut to more fame and fortune. She hasn't done it. Instead, she stayed committed to building the game, even if it means alienating some fans, even if it means financial sacrifice, even if it means taking the hits. And guess what? Every player in the WNBA is going to benefit from it. Salaries are going up. Sponsorships are rolling in. The media rights deal just tripled in value. She's already changed the game. And yeah, there will always be jealousy, but the league needs to remember something: the players that are bitter, the legends who refuse to embrace her, they are the reason we're talking about Caitlin Clark today. They built this league.